We've been talking to him for months. Now, wait a second. They'd only been talking to me for weeks. So they probably would have gone ahead.
At 83, Harrison Ford stands as one of Hollywood's most enduring legends. With a career spanning over 5 decades, Ford has played heroes, explorers, and rebels who shaped cinema history. But beyond his iconic roles as Han Solo, Indiana Jones, and Rick Deckard, lies a man who has seen and lived through every shade of fame. Known for his quiet charm and rough-edged wit, Ford has always been careful about his private life. Yet recently, in a rare, unfiltered moment, he surprised everyone by opening up in a television interview that no one expected to become legendary. When asked a playful but daring question, which women in Hollywood had left the deepest mark on him, the old star didn't dodge or laugh it off like most celebrities would. Instead, he leaned back with that familiar smirk and said with a slow, confident voice, "There are 7. The studio fell silent. It was the kind of confession that only a man who had lived a full, fearless life could make. And as Ford began to share names, memories, and emotions that spanned decades, the world was reminded of something beautiful. Even legends are human. When the clip aired, the reaction was instant. The audience gasped, the host froze, and within hours, social media exploded. Fans couldn't believe what they were hearing. Harrison Ford, the man who once defined mystery, strength, and control, was suddenly open, honest, and even vulnerable. It wasn't gossip or scandal that caught people's attention, but his tone. He wasn't bragging. He was reminiscing. His voice carried a mix of nostalgia and respect, not lust or fantasy. The host nervously asked if he was serious, and Ford chuckled, "At my age, what do I have to hide?" That line became the headline of the week. Journalists replayed the moment again and again, calling it the most candid interview of Ford's career. What made it special was not just the number, 7, but how he described each woman. They weren't names on a list. They were moments in time, women who had inspired, challenged, or mesmerized him. For fans who had followed him for years, this wasn't about scandal. It was about seeing the softer, wiser side of a man who had once been Hollywood's ultimate rogue. The first name Ford revealed brought both smiles and tears: Carrie Fisher. Their chemistry as Han and Leia in Star Wars was one of cinema's greatest romances, and for decades, fans wondered if the fire between them was more than acting. Ford admitted that Carrie wasn't just a co-star. She was a spark. She was trouble, he said with a fond smile. Brilliant, funny, and sharper than anyone else in the room. He spoke of her with warmth and admiration, recalling moments when she would whisper something outrageous before a take, just to make him laugh. Their connection was deep, complex, and unforgettable. Fisher was known for her humor and honesty, and Ford respected her strength more than anything. She challenged him, teased him, and brought out the playful side of his personality that fans loved so much. When he talked about her, it wasn't with regret, it was gratitude. Carrie, he said, was one of those people you never forget. You just carry them with you. It was a touching moment that reminded everyone how real their bond had been, both on and off screen. Next, Ford mentioned another powerhouse, Sigourney Weaver. Known for her groundbreaking role in Alien, Weaver represented strength, intelligence, and independence at a time when women were rarely shown that way in movies. Ford admitted that he admired her deeply, both as an actress and as a person. She didn't need to flirt, he said. She just walked into a room and everyone paid attention. To him, Weaver's quiet authority and confidence made her unforgettable. He laughed while saying that even as Indiana Jones, he might not have stood a chance around her. What impressed him most was how she carried herself, calm, confident, unbothered by the chaos around her. She wasn't just beautiful. She was powerful, and that power made her magnetic. Ford's tone while describing her showed admiration and even a little envy. He saw in Weaver the same bravery that defined his most famous characters, except hers wasn't written in a script. It was real. When the host asked who came next, Ford leaned forward and said quietly, "Meryl Streep." The audience gasped again. Ford's voice softened as he described her. "Meryl made everything look easy," he said. "She had this quiet intelligence that made you want to be better." Streep, known for her perfection and emotional depth, had a presence that fascinated him. Ford confessed that working near her could be intimidating because she saw everything. "She looked at you like she could read your mind," he said. And the worst part is, she usually could. But rather than make him uncomfortable, that honesty drew him in. He admired how she never chased fame. Fame chased her. Ford's description of Streep revealed something deeper about himself, too. Beneath the rugged charm and sarcasm, he was a man who valued intelligence, mystery, and grace. "She didn't need to take the spotlight," he said. "She was the spotlight." Those words became one of the most quoted lines from the interview, proving that Ford's admiration for real talent still ran deep. When Ford said Helen Mirren's name, the audience laughed and clapped. "That woman," he said, shaking his head, "could make anyone nervous." He described her as a perfect mix of class and danger. She could walk into a room and own it without saying a word. Ford recalled seeing Mirren perform on stage years ago and being completely captivated by her. "She had this twinkle in her eye," he said, "like she knew something you didn't, and she was going to enjoy watching you try to figure it out." What he admired most about her was her balance of confidence and playfulness. She could be regal one moment and completely mischievous the next. Ford laughed, saying, "If you think you're in control around Helen, you're not." The audience roared with laughter, but beneath the humor, there was deep respect. Mirren represented the kind of timeless elegance that never fades. For Ford, she was not just an actress, but a symbol of grace, power, and fun, qualities he had always been drawn to. When Harrison Ford mentioned Michelle Pfeiffer, the entire studio gasped. It was the shocker of the night. "Now there's trouble wrapped in elegance," he joked. Pfeiffer's name surprised people because she wasn't one of his co-stars, but Ford's expression made it clear that she had made a big impression on him. "She had this softness, this sweetness," he said. "But when you looked into her eyes, you realized she could destroy you with one look." He admired her balance, gentle but strong, kind but confident. Pfeiffer had always been known for her ability to play both the angel and the rebel, and Ford seemed to love that duality. "I'd be lying if I said she didn't cross my mind more than once," he laughed, making the audience erupt again. It was moments like this that made the interview unforgettable, not because of gossip, but because Ford was completely at ease being himself. No filters, no PR lines, just honesty and humor from a man who no longer cared about Hollywood's rules. The next name showed another side of Ford's admiration, Jane Fonda. He described her not as a beauty, but as a force. "Jane scared the hell out of me," he said, smiling, but in a good way. Fonda was known for her strong opinions, activism, and fearlessness, traits Ford deeply respected. "She spoke her mind, and she didn't care who disagreed," he said. "You couldn't ignore her even if you wanted to." He admired how she lived on her own terms, both in Hollywood and in life. "When a woman like that looks your way," Ford said, "you feel it." That single line showed how much he valued strength in women, emotional, intellectual, and moral. Jane Fonda represented courage and independence, qualities that matched Ford's own rugged nature. His respect for her wasn't about attraction alone. It was admiration for someone who stood tall in an industry that often demanded women play small. Finally, Ford paused before saying the last name. The audience leaned forward, holding their breath. "Elizabeth Taylor," he said softly. The room erupted. Even decades after her passing, Taylor's name carried the weight of true Hollywood royalty. "She was a force of nature," Ford said. "I've met presidents, world leaders, you name it. But Elizabeth Taylor made me nervous." His voice carried both awe and nostalgia. "She was pure magnetism," he added. "When she looked at you, it felt like the world stopped for a second." To Ford, Taylor represented an era of glamour and mystery that no longer exists. She was more than an icon. She was an experience. If she had said one word, Ford joked, "I'd have dropped everything." The audience roared with laughter, but behind the humor was a note of truth. Taylor had that rare energy that could make even the most confident men hesitate. For Ford, she was not just a star. She was the definition of allure. After the interview aired, the entertainment world went wild. Headlines screamed about Ford's 7 women, fans dissected every word, and talk shows debated whether it was real or scripted. But for Ford, it didn't matter. He didn't issue clarifications, didn't post on social media, didn't explain. He just smiled that signature half-smile whenever someone asked. That silence made the story even more powerful. At 83, Harrison Ford has nothing left to prove. He's played heroes, rogues, and legends, from Han Solo in Star Wars to Indiana Jones, the daring archaeologist who could outsmart danger with a smirk. Yet, in a recent interview that shocked Hollywood and delighted fans, Ford decided to share something no one expected. Sitting across from a daring host who clearly wanted to push his luck, the veteran actor was asked a question most stars would laugh off. After all these years working with so many beautiful and talented women, the host began, who are the ones that really left a mark? The studio audience went silent, expecting Ford to make a joke or change the subject. But instead, he leaned forward, eyes twinkling with that familiar mischievous energy, and said, 7. There are 7 women who could have had me. No questions asked. The room went quiet before erupting into laughter and applause. Ford grinned, completely unfazed. I'm 83 years old, he said. Who's going to stop me now? It was a moment that instantly became legendary, a rare, unfiltered confession from one of the last true Hollywood icons. Harrison Ford's charm has always been different. He's not the kind of actor who talks too much or chases attention. Throughout his career, he's kept his private life quiet, even mysterious. That's part of what makes his sudden openness at 83 so fascinating. Ford belongs to a generation of stars who didn't rely on social media or PR teams to shape their image. His charisma came from his work, his voice, his stare, his presence on screen. When he finally decided to speak honestly about his feelings toward certain co-stars, fans felt they were seeing a side of him that had been hidden for decades. It wasn't about gossip or scandal. It was about admiration, chemistry, and respect, the kind that blurs the line between performance and reality. In that interview, Ford's honesty reminded the world that even Hollywood's biggest legends are still human. They too remember the people who made their hearts race, who challenged them, or who made them feel alive. When Ford said the first name, Carrie Fisher, the studio audience gasped. Fans of Star Wars instantly understood the weight of that admission. The chemistry between Han Solo and Princess Leia wasn't just acting. It was lightning caught on film. Ford smiled softly as he talked about Fisher. Carrie was trouble, he said, laughing. Brilliant, funny, impossible to ignore. She could make me laugh in the middle of a serious scene, and she knew exactly how to do it. The relationship between the two had long been the subject of rumors, and Fisher herself later confirmed that they had shared a brief affair during the filming of the original Star Wars trilogy. But the way Ford spoke about her now carried something deeper, a mix of fondness and nostalgia. She was sharp, he said. She could cut you down with one sentence and then make you fall for her in the next. For Ford, Fisher was more than a co-star. She was a once-in-a-lifetime spark, the kind that never really fades. The next name on Ford's list came with admiration more than desire. Sigourney Weaver, the fearless Ellen Ripley from Alien, represented strength and independence in a way that fascinated him. When Alien came out, Ford admitted, every actor in town had a crush on Sigourney. She had this calm power. She didn't flirt or play games. She just walked in and owned the room. Ford explained that Weaver's presence was intimidating in the best way. I played heroes, sure, he said. But Sigourney, she was the hero. She didn't need saving. That quiet confidence, that sense of authority, made her unforgettable to him. It wasn't just about beauty. It was about the kind of strength that draws you in without a word. Ford confessed that watching her work made him want to be better, both as an actor and as a man. When Harrison Ford mentioned Meryl Streep, nobody was surprised. The two had shared the screen in The Devil's Own and Heartburn, but Ford described her as something far beyond a typical co-star.